Oh, all right. So let me share my desk, my software here, and then I'll begin the presentation. Anyway, well, welcome to the talk. Like Marina said, my name is Wayne Jiang, and I'll be doing this presentation. But before I get started, I'd like to give a big thanks to Lan Su Chinese Garden and all their wonderful staff. I have shown in galleries and museums for my 30 years as an artist, and I can honestly say Lan Su is the most beautiful place that I have shown my artwork. So this is my second time there, and I hope to, with their permission, to show there more in the future. So and I want to thank all the staff, especially Marina, Maggie, Rebecca, and all the wonderful folks that that keep the place running. If you have not been to Lan Su's Chinese Garden, it's definitely a must-see if you're ever in Portland, because it's simply one of the most beautiful places that I've been to. So, okay, so this is me in my studio, and again, I'm an artist based in Portland, Oregon, and I'm also a painting teacher. And I paint. My paintings are all acrylic paintings, and I specialize in painting acrylic. I've been using the medium for 30 years, and I've been teaching the mediums for about 13 years. And I've been hold on just a second. I think I need to give, do a little bit of let's see, hold on. I need to give Marina the okay, here we go. So so I teach painting with I teach especially acrylic, just acrylic, and I teach total beginners to professional artists using my acrylic technique. Again, my painting is on view in the Lan Su Chinese Garden in Lounge Hall from now to end of August. So, and here's a screenshot of what the exhibit looks like. And over in the exhibit, you can see some of my paintings in themes of the Chinese garden, Asian restaurant paintings, still life, in particular floral paintings, as well as paintings of Asian American life. And just a couple announcements before I get going in the presentation. The exhibit again ends on end of August. I will do 2 in-person events. I'll give you guys if you come on Monday, July 19 and August 14, 11 to 1 p.m., I will give you a personal tour of the exhibit. I will do a quick talk every 30 minutes in the exhibit. So I hope to see some of you there. And if you want to see more of my artwork, you can go to my website, waynejiang.com. And of course, if you have a Facebook and an Instagram page, if you want to follow me there. So before I get started, I'll tell you about my artwork, just a little bit my background. Again, I was born in Guangzhou, China, and I moved to this country in 87 and into the San Francisco Bay Area. And I'm one of those kids that I always painted and did drawings. Here's me, I think the year between high school and college. Very proud of this big, colorful watercolor that I'd done at the time. When I went to college, I studied art. First in art and design in particular. At first was industrial design, and then I kind of wiggled my way to become a major in illustration, and that's the degree I got out of that I got. And and then I have a couple art shows doing the school, and I start painting a lot of different subject matters, including this is my big head portrait period with my friend Tim, and I had pretty good luck with painting because start having shows. I worked at a couple galleries, and I got shows in galleries, and so with the little money that I earned here and there with painting, it definitely encouraged me to keep going with painting. During the course of learning how to paint and also in art and design, I've become extremely fascinated with the crafts of painting. In particular, the old master painters. So I become a little bit obsessed figuring out how to create the look of some of these old master paintings. So everywhere I travel in my 20s and my 30s, I would go to a museum and spend a whole day there and studying painting. Here's me in front of a John Singer Sargent painting, and by the logo on the T-shirt, you can probably figure out when this was. And then after college, I did many different jobs in the art and design field, including doing a field mural in the Silicon Valley area. This particular mural is in Valley Medical Center in South San Jose. I eventually become a interface designer for software, but while working full-time as a designer, I also keep painting and showing my artwork. And around 2006, I met my wife playing the mountain dulcimer, which is the instrument we're holding there. We got married, and then 2008 is when I quit my day job and start painting full time. And we moved to Portland a little bit of about 5 years ago, and we've been here since. And we love living in Portland, and we love doing lots of gardening and things like that. Here are some of my influence in my paintings. Baroque genre and still life paintings, painters like Vermeer, and also the still life painting in that era. By the way, when I'm showing the artwork in this presentation, when the artwork is not mine, I will put the artist's name, the title, and the year of the artwork there. When my painting is showing with another artist's work, I would also put my title of my artwork there. So you have the information on it. And so besides Baroque painting, I'm also highly influenced by 19th and 20th century realism paintings, both European and American painters like John Singer Sargent, Andrew Wyatt. And I'm especially interested in the paintings of everyday life. And the intimacy of daily scenes like these scenes right here. And then I'm also highly influenced by 20th century documentary photography, photographers like Walker Evans and Dorothea Lange. In photography, and I took a whole bunch of photography class in college, and I was probably about 2 classes short for getting a minor in photography. But what I learned in photography is that how to capture things in real life, and also the rhythm of life, but also the complexity and the narrative that's involved with real life. I'm also extremely drawn to photographers like Walker Evans and Dorothea Lange, who did a lot of photography of marginalized communities, and those works are really touching to me because I felt like they are doing work that people don't, normal people or people don't see every day, and you really inhabit the person's experience in that. Um, the one on the right is a series of photography that Dorothea Lange did during World War II, during a very shameful period of our American history where Japanese American was interned, and this is one of those photographs where the Japanese Americans are waiting to be registered so they can be removed from their home, which these photography was not was censored until recently. And there's a wonderful book on it and called Impounded. So if you guys want to check those out, those are really wonderful photographies. So you can see all those influence in a painting, in my paintings. And this painting is a good example of all those influence kind of merge into one. This painting is called Shermans Wedding, and is my cousin's wedding. And the little boy that's sitting there is Wesley, and he was in the kids' table. That's why the wine bottle was never open. And this painting describes a scene at the end of the banquet where all the adults goes to talk to each other and the kids are kind of just left on their own. So when so the reason I choose to do this painting is because it reminds me one of my favorite painting by Diego Velázquez, the Baroque Spanish painter, and his famous painting Las Minas. One of the things that the Spanish painter did is that they have a color palette of black and red, which it's a color that's also very, very Chinese. So and also these really spontaneous thing that when you look at a painting, it looks like you're just intruding into somebody's living quarter. There's a sense of intimacy, or there's a sense of everyday spontaneity in it, where people are just doing their thing. So the artist puts the viewer into a scene like they are visiting somebody. So that's what I'm trying to do in this painting as well. The other painting that I was thinking when I was doing Sherman's Wedding was Monet's A Bar at the Foulet Boulanger. It's one of his more famous painting where you can see the similar composition where the tableware and the clouds in the back. So and then also I do a lot of interior scenes. So I do use photograph for my paintings, and for those who are not familiar with the process of how artists uses photography as a reference, is that for me, I use photograph as a reference, but there's a lot of editing goes on between the photo reference I took to the final painting. And I'm going to just show you that process really briefly. So this is the hall that in the where my painting is showing. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this painting is that a lot of my painting is about these kind of forgotten things that people don't pay attention to in real life, and so to make that point across, I intentionally painted the scene where my painting is shown, so people can get the idea of seeing things in real life and appreciating it. As the cliche goes, stop and smell the roses, right? So in this case, you stop and look at the windows. The painting was in some way inspired by the Danish 19th century, the 20th century painter Wilhelm Hammershøi. He did a lot of these wonderful windows with really strong lights, and with really soft colors. So I was thinking about that when I was planning this painting. Here's the photograph that I took that I used for the painting. You can see there was a lot of editing that went on in the painting. For one thing, I did not paint it the whole photograph. I cropped it. I changed the perspective on the photograph, so everything it's a little more straight, and so it gets a sense of stability to it. You can also see that the detail that I did not include in from the photograph, that's from the photograph. So if you look at the photograph, there's these checkers patterns on the wall that I took out, and on the shadow here there was much more. The detail on the window I also simplified the shadow, and then there's other things I simplify as well. The reason for doing that is that the feeling of the painting that I want to portray. In the painting, I want to portray a sense of a piece of calmness and serenity, because that's what Lan Su feels to me when I slept. I go into the garden and also go into these rooms. So by eliminating the details in the painting, it makes the painting have much of that feeling that fits the subject matter. So this is something that I do very often when I use a photo reference. I take out details, I move things around, I change the color. Also in here, speaking of color, you can see instead of painting the yellows, I use much more grays and greens and light brown. And that is also to give you a sense of serenity. I think the yellow would be a little bit not fit that theme of calmness in this painting. So that's why I changed it. Also, when I was thinking about the hemisoid painting, so hemisoid painting with a much lower contrast, desaturated color palettes. So I went in the same direction as well. Okay, so the other thing that that sometimes are in my paintings are influence from Chinese scroll paintings and calligraphy. I did study Chinese calligraphy and Chinese painting at a very young age. So some of those quality did come up, especially in the sense of composition. In Chinese scroll paintings, you often see a very panoramic kind of composition where you look from where the scroll is really long. So when you have a panoramic composition, you automatically get a narrative sensibility about the painting, because the pure fact that your eyes going to look from left to right or right to left, depending on what culture you're in, and that creates a sense of time and narrative. So I use that a lot in many of my paintings. Also, the other thing that happened is when you do a panoramic size painting, a lot of times the normal rules of painting, you can ignore quite a bit of those. So you can put things in weird places and it still makes sense. So this painting is called Sunday at Oak Hill. It was the funeral of one of my uncles. And so what's going on here is that the hearse is there and they're burying the body. And then on the right are my cousin burning paper money as a ritual for the funeral. So here's some details. By the way, this is a cemetery in San Jose. And it's the ceremony. I also, so here's some other painting using that panoramic kind of a sensibility. The other thing that is important these panoramic painting is that there's a big relationship between the horizon line and the figure in the painting. So and then the other thing I like to do in these painting is give a lot of empty space within it to let people figure out what the relationship between the figure and the landscape, and the figure and the relationship between the figure and the other figures in the composition. Here's some of the landscape that I created using the panoramic format. The one on top is the snowstorm that hit us about 5 years ago when we first moved to Portland. And then the bottom one is the Central Coast in California. Of course, the panoramic format not only goes horizontally, but also can go vertically. And I use the same, and I use that for my painting as well, not just interior scenes, but also in landscapes. Let's talk about painting technique for a second. Many of you know, all these paintings are done in acrylic, and I use a layering technique to create the look of these kind of translucent look of paintings. And the technique comes from a lot of the Baroque masters like Rembrandt, Peter Paul Rubens, and Vermeer. In the case of Vermeer, the beginning of the painting looks somewhat like this. A lot of the Baroque painter, in order to create a very translucent translucent and very sensuous texture on the painting, they started with underpainting and they built up thin layers of paint on top of each other to create this luminous look. And that's the technique that I use. However, one big difference is that these Baroque masters use oil painting, where I use acrylic. So the technique that I use is a technique that I figure out how to do in acrylic, and it's the technique that I teach in my workshop. So in a typical painting like this, I would start in a yellow underpainting, 3 layers of underpainting, start with yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and then I lay thin layers of paint on top of it. The background layers are usually transparent, and then which means that I paint with lots of water. And then the focal point area, I paint with much more opaque paint, meaning paint with not much water. So it's that contrast between transparent and opaque that that create the sense of dimension in my painting. So instead of what I have here is a speed up video of a painting that's in the show, and you can sort of see how I build up the layers. So this is the underpainting with the yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and burnt umber. Now I'm putting thin layers of paint on top of it, making it darker and darker and darker. And then once I got the paint's pretty transparent, I cannot go any darker. I start putting slightly more opaque paint on top of it. That's how this painting is done. So that's quite. It is a pretty complicated process, but the result is definitely something that I'm pretty happy with. So the painting starts really muted and then it gets much saturated. So this. So this is what the painting looks like. You can see I zoom in really, really close, you can see a little bit of the brown of the underpainting right there. So what that means is, and then also in the focal point area, you can see lots of translucent layer on top of each other. And So what this does, it does two things. It creates a sense of translucency because nothing's really opaque, like, right, when you see. So it recreates the physicality of the object in real life using transparent opaque paint. And also with all the textures and the brushstroke that I create, and it's my way of inviting the viewer to look close to my painting. And the reason I paint this is that this is something that painting can do that photography cannot do. So it's by creating these textures and layers, right? So that's why I do this kind of technique. The other technique that I've been developing recently is the Maxfield Parrish layering technique. So this painting in the show exhibit right now is painting in that technique. The Maxfield Parrish technique is, of course, referring to Maxfield Parrish, the famous early 20th century illustrator. This is one of his paintings. And the way he painted is he painted with lots of translucent thin layers. You can see why I use the Parrish technique, right? Because this really famous lantern painting that Maxfield Parrish have. Here's a really quick condensed video of this technique as well. And this one is even more transparent. So lots of transparent layer on top of each other to get the color. So I use blue, yellow, a little bit burnt sienna. And then I layer more, at this point, more purple. And then also getting the dark area darker with the purple. And then laying more other color on top of it, little bit by little. So, and then laying in the sunshine color in the end. So, let's see. So this is what the painting, this is what the painting looks like in the end. It's a slightly more saturated color technique. So I use this quite a bit in landscape or something that in sunsets and night paintings. Okay, let's talk about painting themes, and I have a few of them. One of the main one is Asian American life paintings. Again, I'm using the spirit of the documentary photographer, where they take photograph of marginalized communities and also communities not to the mainstream, not as a kind of photography that exploits the marginal community, but using us to get people to relate themselves to the culture they don't know as well. So you can see, you saw this painting before, Shermans Wedding has that quality to it. So it's a way of inviting folks not from that culture to be living into, to have a window into that community, but also as a validation or honoring the daily life and the ritual that's practiced by that community. So here's the painting that was in the exhibit. Unfortunately, fortunately for me, it got sold, so it's no longer at the show. So I figured I'd show this painting to you. So this painting is called Unload. It's an image of a worker unloading boxes in a Chinatown shop, and on the edge of Chinatown in San Francisco. So often what I would do is I would do a small painting, and then later on I'd do a painting much bigger than the smaller one. So as you can see, and often what happened is I would do the small painting, not sure if I'm succeeding in the painting, if the painting sells, I want to do a bigger version, I would. So in this case, you can see the smaller painting was 8 by 8 inch, and then the bigger painting is 16 by 16. And you can see, feel the things that I worked out in that, since the small painting. For one thing, the dolly is more red, it's red. not blue. I feel like the blue dolly, even though that's what's in the photo reference, it took away. It was standing out too much. I felt like so in the bigger painting, I kind of work out the color combination where all the reds and purples kind of makes the dolly hand truck meld into the background a little more, so the figure can stand out a little more. Whereas in the smaller painting, the dolly kind of just stands out on its own, and the figure is hiding behind it. So and when I did this painting, I did two painting using the kind of similar subject matter, and this is the one that there are bigger versions of on the left and the lower right. It's called Crosswalks. So I see these two paintings as a kind of a different experience of the immigrant experience in a urban setting. The one on the right is sort of the kind of optimistic version of the immigrant experience in San Francisco, where everything's are in order. You know, the man is, you know, he's dressing fine and looking up into the city as if he's looking into a rosier part of his future, where everything, and then the streets are organized and everything's like it's positive. And then on the one on the left is the other part, the opposite side of the experience, immigrant experience, where the person sort of kind of just been buried in the daily life, the grinds are every day. So so that's what I was thinking in these paintings. And the other theme that I've been working on in these paintings is that oftentimes as an immigrant and as an Asian American male, oftentimes you feel like what your experience and how you feel is somewhat being ignored by the mainstream. So in a lot of these themes, the figures are not interacting with the viewer because they don't the subject in the painting does not feel like they are being recognized by the mainstream. So that's some of the choices I made in the subject matter that I choose. So here, a couple of ones. This one is called Instagram check. So I'm imagining these kids are checking their Instagram accounts or whatever social media app they're on in the afternoon. This is a painting of the sword dancers, again in San Francisco, in St. Francis Park. This painting is a slightly different influence. The colors are much more saturated and colorful. So you can imagine I probably channeled the impressionists in this painting. This one's called Waiting. It's a waiter in a ramen house. This one is called Lucky Cat and Spring Rolls. So it's a takeout restaurant in a Vietnamese restaurant in the counter. This one is called Tree, and it's describes a moment where the father is getting the pomegranate and the kid is left on its own. This one is called Before the Trips. So the kid is drinking a little bit of soda before they're going for a long trip. This one is called Snapshot. So here again is the panoramic composition in practice. This one's called Spring Gathering. It's describing a ritual that a lot of Chinese go through in the spring where they visit ancestors' grave. This is called The Wedding Party. And then the other theme that you'll see in the show is my restaurant paintings. And in my restaurant paintings, there's a lot of the paintings focused on the the condiments and the chopsticks and the utensils as the main theme. Um, and then also I used the paintings to explore the aesthetic of the interiors of a lot of Asian restaurants, and also the workers and the customer and their relationship in these restaurants. And of course, got to put in the panoramic composition. Some of these, it's the vertical ones, and in these paintings, there's a lot of reference back to the Baroque still life paintings again, where you contrast different material with different reflective quality to it. So again, for example, metals versus ceramic, same thing. And then I also make reference to a group of painters that photorealist painters in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s that painted diner scenes. And these diner paintings, like this one by Ralph Going, are sort of a kind of a nostalgic Americana, where they elevate the condiment in the diners as icons of American life and nostalgic. So my restaurant painting with the Asian food condiments and teapots and utensils are kind of my versions of nostalgic and icons. And diners, just like the diners connect you to your childhood or memories, I think the restaurant paintings that I do are also a tribute to Asian American life and their connection to their food and their culture. There's another one. This is called Lemonade and Noodle House Condiments. And then of course I explored the relationship between the people visiting these establishments as well. Here's more of those smaller version of these paintings that I would deal with the relationship of the customer to the worker and the worker to their work environment. And of course, I have to use, in order to make these paintings appealing to me, I also use the similar lighting and color of the Baroque painters. So this one, similar to a Vermeer painting. And then night paintings. Here's my night paintings are about, at night, there's a really, these paintings are realistic in subject matter, but abstract in feelings. And in the night paintings, they portray a kind of a complex sense of, because at night you don't see everything. So there's a sense of calmness to it. But in the same time, there's a sense of mystery to it because you don't see everything. So my painting is kind of explore that feeling between the calmness, the solitude of the night, but also the mystery and sometimes anxiety to it. So how you feel about these paintings depend on how you feel about your life, right? Because we all hold that duality of calmness and anxiety at the same time. So these paintings are what those are about. And of course, since COVID hit, these night painting has a whole lot different meaning than it was before. Especially painting like this with so many restaurant closing. So there's more I can explore in this theme. Of course, I record some of the Baroque painters in these paintings as well. So like the one in Rembrandt, it's a laundromat in San Francisco, and here's a very Portland night painting of food trucks. And of course, the snow painting. And here's the painting of a night painting of the Lan Su Chinese garden when the line dancer came to perform during New Year. And of course, the restaurant. So this is kind of a crossover theme with night and restaurant. And of course, the Chinese garden lanterns and the windows, which I thoroughly enjoy painting, and the lotus floating lanterns at the Chinese garden. And then this is one of the open doors at the garden. Just to show you some of the artistic choices I made. This is the actual gate. I want to make the door look like an entry to kind of a wonderland. So I make the door a little bigger than it actually is in real life. So I did that by tweaking the composition perspective a little bit. I lowered the perspective. And I'll also make the placard a little bit smaller and less curvy on top. So the focus goes back to the door and the lantern. And then lastly, I have the my flower paintings, and again, definitely had the same influence for from the Baroque painters, and describing the translucency of the object. Both my wife and I are big time gardeners, especially after we moved to Portland. Here's some of the flowers we have. We're growing dahlias and zinnias and gladiolus in the front door. They make really nice cut flowers. And on our side yard, we have mostly a native gardens. So here's some columbines and California poppies. So this is a painting of those native columbines and native poppies. This is the apple trees in our side yard, and that's the one those are the flowers that I used for this particular painting here. And then a plum flower that I got from my neighbor. And then another camellia from my next door neighbor as well. And then peonies from our yard. Another peony. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation. So again, I want you to thank you for attending. So nice to see so many of you from different places attending. And just a reminder that I do have the two personal tour events at the Chinese Garden, Monday, July 19th. That's next Monday, and August 14th, 11 to 1 p.m. That's a Saturday. And if you want to see more of my artwork and my painting class, online painting class or in-person painting class, go to waynejiang.com. Of course, I have the Instagram and Facebook page. And just to, you probably guys know this, but all the painting in the shows are for sale. And so there's also prints of my painting for sale in the events as well. So hopefully I'll see you in one of these in-person events. So with that, I like to open up the presentation to your questions. So you can either unmute and ask me a question, or you can type in your question in the chat feature, and I will answer your questions.
Wayne, it's Sally.
Yeah.
I was wondering, the landscape paintings that you had, how, like the one of the funeral, how big is that?
That one's really big. That one is, I think it's about 1 feet by 12 feet. I can't quite remember. That one's really big. And I have to figure out how to break down the canvas before I ship it. So I no longer make painting that's that long, but yeah. Yeah.
And what about the one with the hayfield and the two people in the country? Was that also?
That one's really small. That one's only probably 3 inches by 20 inches.
Oh my gosh. Well,
so one of the things that I do is I like to make small paintings look really big by varying their details, adding a lot of negative space and things like that. So just because your painting is not very big, you can make the space feel really big. So I use a lot of composition not tricks, but ideas, like from the scroll paintings or other paintings, or moving the horizon line, giving a lot of sky, things like that, to make the painting feel much bigger than its size.
Thank you.
Sure. Other questions?
Wayne, hi, it's Deborah.
Hi, Deborah. How you doing?
Good, thanks. It's great to see your work. I'm sorry I won't get a chance to see the exhibit.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to see your work and your evolution and hear you talk about your paintings. So thanks.
Thanks. Good to see you too.
Yeah.
Hi, Wayne. This is Thomas.
Hi, Thomas. How you doing?
That's fine. What would be the largest painting you've ever painted?
The largest painting I've done are murals. And I've done enough mural that to know I don't want to do any more of those. The largest painting I ever done was right before the 2 years before I graduated from college, I answered an ad of a guy who wanted to paint Italian murals in his living room. And his living room was about 30 by 30 feet. And the ceiling is about at least 15 feet tall. So for 2 years, I worked on a scaffold between classes on a mural of a Italian mural. So that's the biggest painting I've done. And again, I've done enough of those to know not ever do murals again. So yeah. Any other questions?
Hi, Wayne. This is Gerald.
Hi, Gerald.
I saw your paintings at the Lan Su the first time I was there in 2019, and it feels like very funny to me that I recently I started following Lan Su and then saw that you were having another exhibit there just at this time, and I was very excited to be able to make the talk. And I like your work a lot because before seeing your work, I don't know a lot about paintings. I mean, I'm a writer, but I would go to galleries and be very disappointed because you see paintings that are, I mean, forget like modern abstractions. You see a lot of paintings that they're about a certain class that I've never been a part of, or like a lifestyle that I've never enjoyed. But I really loved your paintings because they were both modern and cherished a form of life that is relatable and familiar, that isn't, something so gilded and like commercial. I really enjoy that, and that feeling of nostalgia where I find it very validating to view your work.
Well, thank you. That's really nice to hear. It's definitely I'm definitely very conscious of the subject matter that I paint, and that's where the influence from the documentary photography comes in. Learning to do documentary photography and seeing documentary photographer really taught me a really valuable lesson that you could be modern, you could create art that everyday life people can relate to, and also express the views and validate the experience of marginalized community. So, and that's been always my theme. Now, a little bit of downside on that is that because my painting of that sensibility, sometimes it doesn't express the grandness of life, which some people prefer. So, but however, I gotta be true to who I am. So thank you. Any more questions?
Hello, I have one. You said that your painting of the funeral scene was on canvas, but
Yeah.
some of those smaller, very narrow paintings, what do you paint on?
So for smaller painting, I'm painting on panels. Panel just more practical because stretching canvas takes a lot of time. I have a table saw, so I can run my wood panels and I paint on top of that. So when the painting gets bigger, say, I don't know, at 16 by 16, that's when I switch to canvas.
I just want to say that it was really cool to see the sped up versions of you're doing a painting in high speed, layer upon layer. Very cool.
Thank you. So for my online painting class, you'll get the normal speed version of the video. So if you take my online painting class, you get to watch me paint and explain the thinking behind the painting, as well as you get the video, so you can follow the painting, the video on your own speed. So it's not like you have to follow along in the class. So that has been I've been doing that quite a bit during COVID. So yeah.
Wayne, this is Tony.
Yeah, totally.
When you do the panels, you on the panels or the do you gesso that before you start painting on it?
Yes. Well, yes, most of the time. I would say 95% of the time. You could paint on raw panel if you like, but it absorbs more. So certain times it would work. Also, you can use like the color of the raw panel as the undertone color. So you could paint without, like you can't do that with oil, but with acrylic, you could paint on the panel without gessoing it. It just absorbs more paint. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like your work. Wyeth and Sargent and I can't remember the other one.
Vermeer?
Well, Vermeer, yes. Those
Yeah.
are some of my favorite painters.
Yep.
So I see a lot of that coming through your work.
Oh, thank you.
Very beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, those are my three heroes: Vermeer, Sargent, and Wyatt. So
Right.
other ones too, but I go back to their sensibility very often.
Well, we hope to see you at the garden in August. We'll probably be there.
Great. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Sure. Oh, there's our cat in the back making her appearance.
Oh, his cat. I see him.
Hey.
Well, I guess that concludes the end of our art talk. I just wanted to thank everyone for coming. I'm really glad I got to do this because Wayne was definitely one of the first artists that I really, really liked when I first started working here like 3.5 years ago. So it's awesome to finally see him again and do this talk. Thank you so much for joining us for this wonderful talk. Thank you to those who have donated, and for those of you who haven't, check our website. I just saw that Sally donated. Thank you so much. If you guys have any questions for Wayne, don't hesitate to give either of us an email. We hope you enjoyed today and hope that you come back for our next show featuring Ning-Shu Fang on August 4th, I think. Yeah, thank you so much, guys.